Hey everybody, welcome to Mark Bell's Power Project podcast, hosted by Mark Bell, co-hosted by Nsima Iang and myself, Andrew Zaragoza. This episode was recorded on July 17th, and this one was a straight up grand slam. Just a phenomenal episode for you guys today. This man needs no introduction. He goes by the name of FlexWheeler. You already know who he is, so I don't need to waste any more of your guys' time. All I want to tell you guys is that I laughed, I cried, and I was inspired by our conversation. You guys are going to love this. If you do, please reach out to us at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on Twitter. We're on YouTube, Facebook, all over the place. Let us know what you guys think about this episode. Real quick, another thank you to FlexWheeler for spending so much time with us. I don't know if we'll ever be able to thank you enough for this conversation, but we just sincerely appreciate you. Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me. Please enjoy this phenomenal episode with the legendary FlexWheeler.
Ready to hop on in?
Yeah, let's roll. We're rolling now.
Roll it.
Yep, we're good to go.
All right. Yeah.
Fired up for today.
Yeah, today's show, we got FlexWheeler on the show. I'm super excited for that. Flex is, accomplished just about everything you can possibly think of in bodybuilding. And one of the things that I think is really cool about him is he's known as having like the best physique of all time. Like he's known for a lot of other bodybuilders rather. I hit up Jake Cutler today and just told him, hey, I have Flex on the show today, and he's like, best physique ever. Like, that's all he said. It's like hands down best physique ever. So it'll be great to talk to the guy who's had the best physique ever, along with he's had some health issues over the years. He had a car accident in 1994 that was devastating, but he still was able to come back from that. And then I just don't really remember. I got some vague memory of a kidney issue that he had, which I believe is hereditary, something that may run in his family or something like that. And then, of course, everyone's going to just pin it to performance-enhancing drugs because that's pretty prominent in bodybuilding. But he always just said it was a hereditary thing. Either case, it's like something that he had to deal with. I think it was like kind of smack dab in the middle of his career. Yep. So I'm interested to find out how the heck how did you have some serious illness when you're trying to make your body as big and as lean as strong looking as possible and still step on the stage with Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman and all those mutants.
I think as far as that issue is concerned, I think he did mention that the PEDs did speed that up. So I think he did mention that, but it's going to be really interesting to talk about. The thing that I just find that's so crappy though is I feel like if Flex was Flex now, like in his back when he was competing then, he'd be winning Olympias right and left. But I just think when you have Ronnie and like everything, Dorian Yates, and everything's based off of mass monsters, that's just a difficult time to be a great bodybuilder.
Yeah, that's the way that the balance at that time was swinging towards just being massive, just towards being huge. And it was hard. Whenever you saw Ronnie Coleman next to somebody, it just didn't make any sense. You're like, how could I possibly give a trophy to anybody else except for that guy?
Yeah.
He really stood out. Like he looked like a different species than a lot of people that were up there. He's also pretty tall, and they just had like a great, beyond having like a presence behind him, he just really freaking wide shoulders, like things that I don't know how I think you just have it.
Yeah.
Some people just have it. He had kind of the full combination. But what I also like about FlexWheeler is the other athletic background that he has with like martial arts. I think it'd be interesting to talk to him about that. He always kept his mobility. Like that's kind of the reason why his name Flex. Not only can he flex, but he's flexible. He wrote a whole book about it. And he could do splits. Yeah, when he was on stage, he was amazing. And even on stage, he was like an amazing performer. I think he brought performance to bodybuilding. Not that it was never there before, but I think that he kind of highlighted it, and he was the like epitome of it. And then on top of that, I was telling Andrew, I was like, I don't think I remember like nice cars and things like that being associated with bodybuilding until he came around. It was him and a couple other guys at the time you would see in the bodybuilding magazines. They would be kind of associated with these nicer sports cars and kind of living a lifestyle that was maybe like a rock star lifestyle, like that you didn't know. You weren't aware of. Like, I never heard of that about Arnold before, until Arnold, later on was obviously multimillionaire from the movies and stuff. But you just didn't think of those things. And I remember seeing those guys pull up to Gold's Gym in Venice when I used to train there, and they always had some beautiful sports car, and you're like, how do they fit in there?
Yeah.
How does a guy with 22-inch arms squeeze into a thing like that? Especially how big their legs are. And then, Flex, also he trained with Charles Glass. He also had a training partner that's one of the biggest bodybuilders of all time, Paul Dillette. Just absolutely massive. I don't know if you've ever seen that guy, but if we bring up some pictures of him, he had the craziest, squiggliest veins in his shoulders and chest that you've ever seen. And so it'd be interesting, to kind of get to the bottom of, there's a lot of these great bodybuilders from the past that they kind of never got over the hump. And so I'd love to hear some of his take. I'm sure he's not going to, throw any of his boys under the bus, but it would be interesting to know, did they just not diet all the way down?
When you say get over the hump, what do you mean?
Yeah, just like some of these guys not winning some of the bigger shows. And I'm not talking about Flex specifically, because I know that Flex, he unfortunately didn't win a Mr. Olympia. So that's something that has always kind of lingered for him, but he won everything. So I'm not even talking about him. I'm talking about some of the guys that he trained with, like Paul Dillette. Like that guy, he was a great bodybuilder as well. And again, he's one of the bigger bodybuilders. But when it came to the bigger shows that you thought that he was going to win, he usually would underperform. And it'd be interesting to kind of know why. I don't know bodybuilding that well. I don't know bodybuilding on the level that these guys know it. And I would imagine travel, just anything, anything could probably set you off in the wrong direction. And you have to become good at all of it, as we saw with some of the documentary of Ronnie Coleman. It's man, there's a lot that goes into this. It's not just, they talked about how Ronnie Coleman would go around with this giant bag. He had this huge bag that he would lug around, and the other guys were like, what are you doing, man? He's like, I got all my meals. He was trying to be as meticulous as he possibly could. And the other guys would make fun of him.
Yeah.
I still have to check that documentary out.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty good. I think FlexWheeler used to be a cop too.
He did. He was a cop for a little bit. Him and Ronnie both were. But what I got to clarify and I got to ask is the name Flex, because you see a lot of bodybuilders later on named Flex. Did those guys just change their names? And was his original name Flex, or did he change to Flex because it fits so well? I don't know.
Oh, there he is.
We'll see.
This is where we get to see his patience.
Oh,
there we go. We got him.
He's on the phone. Oh,
about time, jeez.
Yeah, that's phone. So I think this.
So amateur hour at the Apollo right now, man.
Yeah, I think we got you. I think we figured it out. I'm loving the beard, by the way.
Thank you. It's my my new approach here. I'm not going to shave. I'm working on my Grizzly Adams look.
Flex, I gotta kind of start off.
A little too old for you guys.
I got to start off by first of all, saying that it was some years ago. I mean, man, we're probably going back about 10 or 11 years. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's probably going back now 10 or 11 years ago that I went to the Olympia with my Slingshot product and with kind of the first edition of Power Magazine. But you were behind us getting a booth there, and I don't think I ever even had an opportunity to thank you for it. I don't know if you remember, Stan, you were training Stan at the time, so I'm sure you remember some of that. But Stan was probably telling you, hey, I know this guy out in Sacramento who's, starting this magazine, and maybe you can pull some strings. And you pulled some strings for us, and we were able to get a booth there. So really appreciate that. That was huge.
No, I didn't even know if you remembered or not, because I never got to check in the mail or anything. But
it's probably I have a different style of bank account.
I just want to, on behalf of that, just say congratulations on your 10-year anniversary with the Slingshot. That's amazing, man. You've done some incredibly impressive things since then.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I remember being down at Gold's Gym Venice years and years ago, probably over 20 years ago, and kind of seeing you and a lot of the other bodybuilders at that time. It was just, there were so many legendary bodybuilders in there at one time. And then even before I got there, dating back to you got the Barbarian brothers in there, and obviously Mike O'Hearn. I think he's become part of the furniture in there at this point. He's been in there for so long. Can you? That wasn't good. Can you talk to us about some of the early days of Gold's Gym and what it was like? Because you guys were competitive with each other. You guys would get on stage and compete against each other and stuff like that. So what was that like?
You know what? It's hard to explain. For one, I was so green, and I didn't know I was a part of time, because truly that was a time where you had any A-list actor walk through the door, any A-list model walk through the door. I remember Olympic gold champions. When the Bulls came, they would come there. Whoever it was would be there, and I've seen so many amazing actors. But it was like, when you walk through that door, you just deleted who you are, and you're nobody. It was just like one big family. Nobody walked around arrogantly, whether they were, an Oscar winner or anything like that, because, they'd be put in their place really, really quick. So it was just so beautiful. I mean, I remember the first time I met this Olympic gold medalist. I'm trying to think of her name. Her husband was a coach. She was married to FloJo's brother or something. I'm trying to think of the other, I can't think of her name, but, she had just won her gold medal, and I walked by and I'm like, wow, congratulations. I'm a huge fan. She goes, thanks, Flex. And I kind of just stopped in my tracks, like, she knows my name? Oh, are you kidding me? But just that, it was such an amazing time, man. But, no disrespect to any other gym, no disrespect to any other gym, but it was just a beautiful nucleus there. I mean, obviously they had the best equipment, whenever the newest machine would come in, they would have it there. And it was just a place where you went in and you just felt like getting down, you went in there, it was like, it was like magic, something in the air. You just felt like training hard, and just, it's unexplainable. It's unfortunate that those days are kind of gone now. And, but I remember, we would, if you were some statue, not some statue, but you had to be pretty up there, you just pull up right in front of the door and park your car. You know what I mean? And I remember those were the days you just pull right up in front of the car, front door, just park your car there and just go in and train, and nobody would say anything. But it was magic, man. It was magic.
I remember me and my brother would be so confused by the bodybuilders, especially like Paul Dillette. We used to watch him park his car, because he would wait like a half an hour just to park like super close to the gym, because I don't think he wanted to walk. And then plus, you guys had nice cars.
Like, dude, you could just walk across the street. Why? I'm like, why? And I would do the same thing. We would just sit there. If there wasn't a parking, we'd just sit there and wait. But it was an amazing time. It was truly an honor to compete back there, and just to have any of the other prolific actors or athletes. I mean, Kobe and everybody would come through the door. I can't even think of some of the world champion heavyweights that would come through the door. The Rock would come there and work out. And I remember before he even made it big, he would come and have breakfast with us every morning. And Rico and Chris and all of them knew who he was, but I wasn't really into wrestling back then. And it'd be like 6 of us every morning, having like brunch after training. And he'd sit there and we'd be talking, and I would hardly ever say anything to him, because I'm not the type of person who likes to invade somebody else's space. If me and you are talking and you have a close friend there, I'm not going to really engage with him that much, because he's not my friend. So I'm like, yeah. So anyway, like, dude, I don't know you, right? So I wait until I build that type of relationship before I engage like that. And I remember after a couple of times, Rico was like, obviously Rico is so close to me, but he's like, Flex, why are you being such a dick? And I'm like, I'm not being a dick. He goes, dude, man. He goes, man, Rock's sitting there. You never say nothing to him. I'm like, I don't know, dude. I ain't going to sit up there and chat it up with him like I know this dude, like some knucklehead, because I hate people to do that to me, right? I felt so bad about it that I actually had seen Rock in the gym a few days later, and I walked up to him and I just like, hey man, I want to apologize, for being a dick. He's like, really? He goes, I never thought you were a dick, Flex. I'm like, well, Rico said I'm rude. I never talked. He goes, yes, I never thought that. I always thought you were a respectful guy. He just always liked you. I'm like, yeah, Rico just made like a big thing. I respect that, man. And I was like, what? He's like, Flex, I love bodybuilding, also, I want to compete too. I'm like, yeah, get out of here, man. He goes, Flex, I don't got to lie to you. I'm like, oh, yeah, cool, man. Right on. But it was just beautiful, man. And again, just to have people that you admired your whole life, watching on screen or compete or whatever, to go in there and mostly nobody had an attitude. It was an amazing time.
It was a freak show in there. You'd see like Hulk Hogan in there and Stone Cold Steve Austin, Carl Lewis, Rocky Balboa, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold,
Van Damme. I mean, you Lyle Alzado. You go way back. Not to mention every historical bodybuilder you can imagine. Even some of the great actors' names, I can't freaking think of the names right now. God, I'm embarrassed. I don't even make myself look worse. But just anyone around the 80s and 90s who was just at the top of their class came in that place and they got down because it was a place to go to. Now, like yourself, I remember the first time I went there after I won the California Championship in '89. That was probably before you were born, huh? Were you born?
76.
No, I'm just kidding. But 1989, I remember I was just so giddy, just looking around like, oh my God, this is the place, and later on, just feeling like, I paid rent there and I belong there. So just a beautiful moment.
Did you guys keep stuff from each other? I know like a lot of times you were training, I think a lot of you guys trained with like Charles Glass or utilized similar like methods and stuff. Would you try to like keep stuff from one another or would you try to share it with each other? Like how did that whole thing work?
No, you know what? We were different back then. Of course, me, Rico, and Chris, we were training partners, and we had a pride about ourselves. You're not going to out-train us. You're not going to be stronger than us, and you don't want to fight either one of us, none of us, because it's not going to be good. So that was kind of like that era. If you walked into that gym during those times, you're in our house, and act accordingly, or else we'd love to step to you and kind of holler at you, So, but no. It was all love, man. I mean, even guys who had competed before I did, Rich Gafari, who came in there, Lee Haney. I can't think of some of the other guys, but they all just shared their advice and everything. They would talk to me and give me advice. I remember, having the honor of watching Rich Gaspari pose in a posing room, getting ready for Olympia. And, he allowed me to come in because I was working with Neil Spruce at the time. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, this guy's this Rich Gaspari, he's getting ready for Olympia. So it was beautiful. Mike Quinn, he would always give me advice. And these are guys that were there before me. So it wasn't like that. At least not around my camp. Now, maybe some other people had that type of relationship with me, no. And the same, I learned from other people. So still to this date, I don't mind sharing my knowledge with someone else. I know Ronnie talks about all the time about, how I helped him. And, people ask me all the time, do you regret telling them? I'm like, no, because I'm wired that how can you consider yourself a man if you kept yourself or kept knowledge from another competitor and then beat him? And I know a lot of people say, well, you keep that knowledge and you beat a champion, but I would go home and I'd be a punk, because you didn't really beat this man because you knew more than he did. So that's just the way I kind of grew up. I want to compete against the best. I want to measure myself against them and let the chips fall where they may. But no, I researched stuff back then. Now, if you wasn't a resident at Gold's Gym, kind of like, Sean would come in. Now, Sean's one of those guys we never talked about what we did. Sometimes we would talk a little bit about dieting, but it was more because he was kind of closed off. And there were other guys, but they're not who I considered residents there at Gold's Gym, everyday guys. But between us now, we trained, we loved each other. Me and Rico, me and Chris competed against each other, and we never kept secrets. Later on, I found out that he kept secrets from me because he wanted to beat me. But I was like, what, really? Because I remember one time I was getting ready for a show, and he goes, Flex, he goes, never mind. I go, what? He goes, nah, never mind. And then later, or years later, he told me, he goes, yeah, I didn't tell you because I didn't want, I wanted to beat you. And I was like, just, really? I'm like, so anyway, no, not really.
What was it that he didn't tell you? Did you ever find that out?
He still didn't tell. I think it was something I remember. He told me later on, he said, if I was you, I wouldn't continue chasing these guys with size because you have a different type of shape and you have a different type of condition. And if you just allow yourself to mature slowly, you'll be able to beat them later on. But I was chasing Dorian, and Dorian was a lot bigger than I was. And then it came Ronnie, and I was literally told by judges that I'll never beat them unless I was their size. So I started chasing them, and kind of what Chris was holding back. He goes, "No, man, don't chase them. You'll beat them, eventually because you're better than them." So I wish he would. Probably wouldn't have mattered. I probably wouldn't have listened anyway. I probably would have thought he was probably trying to jinx me or something like that. But yeah, other than that, I don't mind, man. If anybody asks me now, I tell them everything I know, except the sports technology side of the game. I don't believe in doing that because I don't want to be responsible for somebody else, doing something that I did and then they get hurt because I'm responsible, right? I told them, but everything else I share with people, and I don't share that with them just because, say that me and you went to a club, all three of us went to a club, and I was kind of new at drinking, and I was like, man, I don't know what to have, Flex, first we're going to start with this, then we're going to have this. Right. So you guys, like, on your third shot or something, you guys are barely feeling it, and I'm, like, still, trying to finish my second shot, and I'm on my way to the hospital because my blood alcohol is too high. So everybody can't handle everything the same way. So I was just very, very conscious of that, and I wouldn't talk about that or answer questions about it, but I would never say, this is what I did and this is how much I did, because I didn't want to be responsible for somebody hurting themselves.
On your way to chasing some of these bigger bodybuilders, did you potentially maybe ruin your own physique a little bit? Or did you get lost and caught up in that? Did you get too thick, too blocky, too much unlike your original self?
No, I don't think so. What happened is, I think I should have took more time to develop. I mean, I would compete every year, multiple times a year, even sometimes up to 12 times a year. And I would compete every year except when I had my car accident. I was out that year. And then I think it was in 97 when I missed another year. But no. And, I guess now understanding some of the diuretics that I was using were very primitive. I'm not going to say their names, but they were very primitive and they were used heavily in the 80s. And I learned from the 80s, so I kept using those where, the game would switch in the late 90s. And, so I wasn't able to continue my condition. And if you remember, and if anybody's want to research, if they go and look at the 99 English Grand Prix, they'll see what I mean, because 99, Mr. Olympia, I thought I should have won based on the merits of what was going on behind, the closed doors. But I wasn't in mint condition. I wasn't 100% in condition, but, a lot of it was still good enough to win. So when we went on tour, Ronnie came to my room and he's like, he called me. He said, come to my room. I'm like, all right. He goes, man, what are you doing? I go, what do you mean? He goes, what you doing? I'm like, what do you mean, Ronnie? He goes, what you using for a diuretic? And I told him, he goes, damn, Flex, that's old. I'm like, really? He goes, try this. And I go, no, man, I heard about that one. I don't want to get on with that one, man. I heard that messed a lot of people up. He goes, just try one. Just take one. I go, one? I go, because this other thing I got to take for like 6 days, and there's like 2 or 3 of them. He's like, just trust me. You trust me? I go, of course I trust you. He goes, you told me everything I know. Now it's my turn. He goes, just take one. I'm like, all right. So I went to my room and I took it and I kept eating my food. And normally from these other diuretics, they would just rip water from me. And I was very aware of it. I would pee gallons a day of fluid, and I would continue drinking also. Everything I would piss out, I would drink until the last probably about 24 hours before show. Then I would shut down and take in water and then continue urinating out. So when he gave me this particular diuretic, I only went to the bathroom like 3 times, and it was like very little. I was like, God dang it, this ain't working. And when I woke up the next morning, instead of having water just ripped from my body, and I was, kind of flat, but still really dry and shredded, I was super, super full, but, it's like my skin had saran wrap. It just got tighter and tighter. Instead of it pulling water out of the muscles, it's just my skin would get tighter and tighter around my muscles, right? So I end up at the Olympia 99, I weighed 246.
Damn.
Well, at the English Grand Prix, I weighed 256.
Oh.
And me and Ronnie already did an interview about this, and he acknowledged it and everything. But he's like, yeah, you weighed the same weight that I did, because I weighed 256 at the English Grand Prix. And, man, I was just like puking up muscle. I was so freaking full and just rock hard. Glutes was hard, striated and everything like that. And it was so funny that even the girl Ronnie was dating at the time, who was a mutual friend of both of ours, she ran backstage after pre-judge, and she's like, Ronnie, Flex is whooping your ass on stage. He was like, I know. I go, yeah, it don't matter, bro. You know you're going to win. He goes, well, just take it from me. You won in this show. But that was the difference in the diuretics. Just that diuretic, I'm like, wow, now I understand why I would be so heavy going into a show, and as soon as I start using my regimen of diuretics, it would just rip water from me, and I wouldn't be able to carry that same type of muscle. Even in one video of me training with Charles Glass, where I'm doing back, and I'm doing bent over rows. And every time I come up, my back is just all super straight. I was like 260-something pounds then, and back was just shredded, but I wouldn't carry that type of fullness, that type of muscle on stage. So, that's kind of the only thing I kind of slipped up on. And, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Only that 15 seconds on stage is all that matters. What you look like before, during, or, before, after, it doesn't matter at all. So, that was probably one thing I regret, just not keeping up on the skills of that. So,
does it seem that, like, because I might be totally wrong about this, but obviously I'm assuming you've been lifting for a really long time, but when it seems that when you started competing until then you started competing at the Arnold's and then Olympias, it seems like you progressed pretty quickly for a bodybuilder. Am I wrong about that? Because I see like there are bodybuilders yeah.
I did. And, there's been studies, I'm sure you guys have heard about it, where they've done these studies on extreme responders and myostatin gene and all that stuff. And supposedly I was at the point of having to, supposedly the freakish genetics, the scientists said that my HGH level was through the roof and my IGF level was through the roof, and also something like I had like 3 times amount of muscle fibers per strand compared to everybody else. And they did studies on, and you can pull this up. You just type in flexible myostatin and it all pop up. But they test other people who they thought were going to be extreme responders too. Also Ronnie, and I thought Ronnie would be the one because just the way he looked. But I guess everyone supposedly had like a twin somewhere that had identical, same to them, and I had no twin to mine. So it's kind of funny when I first started, working out back in a teenager, some of the old timers would always look at me like, damn, Flex, you come in the gym and look like you just breathe the air and you grow, and so that, it seemed like that happened a lot. But I think, probably one of the bad things about that is I might have matured as physique-wise, right? But I didn't mature the same way mentally as far as the game was concerned. I won't say things happen easily for me, but they kind of happen fast. My first Olympia, I'm placing second. And my first 4 pro shows I ended up winning, which was put me in the Guinness Book of World Records for having the best pro debut in the history of bodybuilding, which still stands to this date. So in my ignorance, I didn't take it as serious, because things happen so fast. And, for me, I come from nothing. I come from welfare and, being homeless and, the ghetto and, all the hard things along with that. So making more money. I remember when I competed in 93, my pro debut between the Arnold and the Ironman, which was just a week apart, I'd made over $90,000. That's more than I'd ever made in my entire life. And that's actually more than in my immediate family tree that anyone had ever made. So, I just thought, okay, this is normal. I wasn't a historian of the sport. I didn't know the history of everybody, anything like that. So, I think the bad thing, what happens with most people who, when they finally make it, they just shoot through the roof. The maturity doesn't happen like that. And I think that's why you see a lot of actors or athletes who are really, incredible as an athlete and making all this money, their maturity level isn't there. But yeah, it kind of happened, fast. It's not that I didn't work my ASS off, but yeah, I think, other people worked just equally hard as I did, or maybe even harder, but it didn't happen for them. But, at the end of the day, look at, the slingshot, when you think about it, very, very simple, ideal, right? Nobody else thought about it, right? So I think, some people, no matter what it is, are just gifted in a certain way. And when they're gifted that way, you can't compete. You kind of just step back and just like, wow, let me take part in watching this. And, obviously that man sitting next to you is a part of that. It's ideal than what he's been able to do. So you can't say that he didn't work hard, but I'm sure other people could look at him like, wow, that happened fast for you, man. I've been doing this or I've been doing that, but I think he can also attribute that every overnight success is 5 to 10 years in the making. People think you're overnight success, like really? So you can kind of say, yeah, plus you're an overnight success. Well, no, not really. I started competing when I was 13, first time I went on stage. So a lot of people say, oh, you learned to pose easy. Well, thank God it wasn't a video camera or camera phones back then, because you'd see me crawling around on my underwear to Prince, trying to pose and stuff like that. So, but I'm just blessed, and no matter what, man, I'm super happy about what I could achieve and the experiences I had, and it helped, to bond and pull me to be the man that I am sitting before you.
I find it fascinating that you've said in other interviews that you didn't have hardly any self-confidence. And I think a lot of people suffer from that. They don't have a lot of self-confidence. But I think what's unique about yourself is that you have at least enough to be courageous enough to say, hey, let me just give this a shot. What do you think that is that's inside you that makes you different in that way?
I always wondered that, and I always noticed that. And my answer came to be that, no, I mean, I have no self-esteem, very low, even to this day. And I...
That's weird, man. You're not giving much hope for the rest of us. I said, you're not giving much hope for the rest of us. Like, if you don't have it, then the rest of us can have a tough time.
Different. It's a number of different ways to get to your house, a number of different streets you can take, right? So everybody's destination might be different, but, the hopes of getting there is what we're looking at. But, no, it's from my upbringing. I had a difficult life, as I've said a billion times in interviews, just, not having any money, being on welfare, wearing hand-me-downs, being made fun of, what clothes I had or whatnot, sexually abused and stuff like that, beaten and stuff like that. So doesn't, it's not a nucleus for having great self-esteem, you can't say, right? So, but it never changed, even as I got older, and I somehow I created this FlexWheeler, image person, once I got bigger. I was always a great fighter. I came from a fighting background, and even in school, I would get bullied. So I learned to invite the bully to my martial arts class. And for some reason, within those walls, I would terrorize everybody, but walk outside that and I would just be terrified of anybody. So I would invite the bully to come, and then I would make sure I got a chance to spar against him, and I would just walk through him. And then he would go back and be the mouthpiece. I don't mess with him, karate. So I didn't have to fight too much. But I just so as I got bigger and I looked the part, I somehow created this alter ego, this FlexWheeler guy who didn't take crap from nobody. I didn't start stuff, but I love to end it. I love to get engaged and end it. And whether it's competing, I'm competitive against everything, but I still was Kenny Wheeler inside. And honestly, I remember sometimes I would walk by an object and either rip my arm or rip my leg, because I never would, even within myself, I never realized how big I was. And I would look at pictures of myself, and all I would see is just a little Kenny inside me. I wouldn't see everything else. I didn't see everything else everybody else did. So, but what was different, I've always been kind of more a realist. I wouldn't say a pessimist. I wouldn't say optimistic, but I was more or less a realist. So I didn't believe that I would achieve anything, but I was wired differently. That it didn't stop me from trying my ASS. I mean, so I would go into Olympia and I'm not going to win, but you know what? I'm not going to lose because I didn't try hard. So it's kind of like, if you fight somebody who's really scared of you, be very nervous because they're terrified. They have nothing to lose, and they're going to launch every weapon they have at you, So I was like that. I was terrified. So even in my fights, when I would get in a fight, I'd be crying. and whoever I'm about to fight would be laughing, like, look at you crying. I'd be like, I can't control these, but I can control these. Come here. And that's the way it was on stage. I just try really hard. I loathe losing. I'm very emotional. I cry when I lose. I cry when I win, and I can't accept failure within myself. I'm my worst enemy. So I gave it everything I had and everything I did, but I just said, maybe it can happen, maybe it couldn't. And I prefer to prepare myself for the worst, so that if the worst happened, I was prepared for it. And if something better happens, then great. The same way I was trained in martial arts and street fighting, I was trained to be prepared for the worst. Therefore, I'll launch everything I had and be prepared for that. So I don't know why, but yeah, even to this date, I still deal with that. And you're right. I think most people who are very, very outgoing are normally introverts by themselves. You look at, Michael Jackson. You look at even his sister, Janet. You look at Prince. If you talk to them privately, they're very much introvert, and they probably want to engage with you. But you get them on stage in their own element, man, and they just will light the world up. I'm not trying to say I'm at their level or anything like that. What I'm comparing is, I was very uncomfortable in my skin. I still am. Whenever I'm in public, I'm extremely uncomfortable. I'm worried about, am I standing up straight? Who's looking at me? Am I holding my stomach in? Did I trip? Am I walking? When everyone else, I'm exuding this overconfidence, and it's because I'm trying to hide the real person inside me. And I remember many times saying, I'm the world's greatest chameleon, because none of you guys really know how I really feel. I mean, I was always considered arrogant and cocky. And I laugh because I'm like, you guys have no idea. And they're like, well, look at your antics on stage. You're tapping guys and putting your arm around them, showing how you're better. I'm like, no. That's not what I'm doing. I'm tapping them because I'm trying to transfer energy. My logic in doing that, if I'm on stage with someone, which I was always nervous, what I would do is if I put my arm around them, I just transferred, I thought, right? I thought that if I put my arm around them, you're no longer looking at me, you're looking at them because I touched them. That was my thought, but I guess it could be pursued as I'm being cocky. When they would call my name out for a call out, I'd walk up, be like, yeah. But we're really all saying, like, God damn it, they're going to find out that I'm a fugazi. But, as a child, I learned in my neighborhood, when people find out their weaknesses, they will use them against you. And globally, as I got older, I found out on a global scale, if somebody found out that you were nervous or weak about something, they are going to use it as a weapon. So I guess I kind of took that and harnessed it and kind of just reversed everything that I was going through and tried to make it more cocky and arrogant. So I preferred for you to think that I was cocky and arrogant than you to find out that I was really terrified. I'm incredibly dyslexic. I put my shoes on backwards still to this day. I can't read, very well. When I look at words, if you were reading a verse and I was looking at it, I have to look at each word as I'm reading instead of just flowing through like most people. So even in school, I was so embarrassed of that I preferred to cuss the teacher out and get kicked out of school, get a paddling, because back then you got a paddling from the principal, and go home. And then you get an ass whooping from your mother or your dad for getting. But I preferred that to happen instead of people finding out that I just didn't know what was going on in school. And that's kind of the person I became, just trying to hide things. For people to find out what my weaknesses were.
Did you have a hard time finding happiness? It sounds like the expectations of yourself are kind of low, so maybe you didn't struggle with that part, but I'm not sure.
No, it's weird. It's weird. It's hard to answer that for you to understand. My expectations of myself were low, but I dreamed big. I wanted to be Mr. Olympia. I just didn't think I was worthy. So my wants didn't actually equal, the same. So it was actually worse because I wanted these things. I wanted to be able to be successful. I wanted to be noticed. Like that one song I'm always singing to my daughter. I'm a creep. I'm a loser. I wanted that, so I put so much pressure on myself. And then, kind of once I got in the game, and even in fighting, it was so much pressure because people more mature than me seen my ability. And they would tell me about my abilities and the possibilities, and I would put pressure on myself to reach that, but I would always be at war with myself because I'd be like, but you're not good enough. But other people see that I am good enough. It's probably the same as you. You can probably look at some kid who's super strong, like, wow, that kid got talent. But that kid doesn't know it. And as you sit there and talk to him and tell him about what his possibility is, he's probably looking at you like, what? That was kind of me. But I wouldn't look at him and say what. I would just shut up and stare at him. But in myself, everything they're saying, I would denounce it. That's not true. That's never going to happen. That's not that. No, it's not going to happen. But I wouldn't tell them that because then I pointed out my weakness to them. No, but I was never satisfied. I was never happy. Never. Throughout my entire career. I was probably more happier when I was fighting than I was ever as a bodybuilder. And
what about now? What about now when people say, a lot of people say that you have the greatest physique of all time, and you obviously have accomplished so much in bodybuilding, and you've helped so many other bodybuilders become great bodybuilders. You mentioned helping Ronnie Coleman and stuff like that. What about now? Are you able to accept it now?
It's opinion. The truth is, it's really an opinion, right?
Right.
It's an opinion because, I can go in some places and they'll think I'm a garbage as a bodybuilder, right? So what I've learned is, and you're going to hear me argue with myself now, like I've been telling you all along, and here's an example. Truly, it's opinion. And that's what I would say to people who would say that, you're a great fighter or you're a great bodybuilder. It's your opinion. And everybody don't carry your opinion. So why should I believe in your opinion when there's probably just as many people out there who say the opposite? How could I put it? It's your belief in something that makes it so. So either one of you, say you're dating someone or married to someone, and for the sake of the conversation, let's just say that you're honestly telling the truth, and they believe you're lying. Their belief is going to overrule the fact. That's the way we are in our entire world. Their belief is going to overrule the fact. Same thing if we see to us what we would conceive a very beautiful female, but she doesn't think so. You can tell her all you want how beautiful. Oh my God, and she'll look at you like, get out of my face. Her perception overrules facts, and that is true in everything, in every aspect. Just like we'll see some guys, you might see some guys in powerlifting or in bodybuilding who just think they SHIT don't stink. And we're looking at them like, dude, you are not all that. But they believe so. Their perception overrules facts. And that's what I thought when people would say that and what they say now. So now I just accept it. Thank you. And by me saying that, what I'm really saying to myself is, you feel that way, and I appreciate it, but it doesn't make it factual. But you got to reverse that also. In their mind, it is a fact to them, and they really believe that. But it's opinion on everything that we do, bro. You're a great slingshot. Look at the records. Look how much money you've made. Look, 10 years. There's probably other people out there like, that's garbage, dude. Their opinion overrules facts. So, by the way, it's not garbage. It's great.
So going back to your mindset when you were competing, you felt you were good enough, but you didn't feel that you deserved it. Do you think that was a downfall, or do you think it was maybe like your superpower against, what everyone else was doing for themselves?
Say the beginning of the question first.
So the question was with like the way you your thought process was when you were competing. You knew that you were good enough, but you felt you were not worthy of winning Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
So do you think that was like your superpower, or do you think it was a bit of a downfall when looking back at it?
This is going to be a weird answer, but I just got to be honest and true to myself. I don't really think it mattered. Because everything is a business when money's involved, right? Everything, even our relationships between our husband and wives. It's about positioning, right? It's not always who's right. It's about positioning. So my answer to that is whether it was a downfall that kept me from winning the Mr. Olympia. No, because I didn't think I was going to win any other show. Well, actually not true. And this will help my argument also. So no, I never thought I was going to win Olympia. And when I did feel that I was going to win Olympia, I didn't. There's other people out there, and I just got off the phone with the great Lee Labrada. He was like, you definitely should have had Olympias. So how could I, in some eyes, people like will go to their grave like, you won the Olympia, man. You won at least 3. Yet I didn't. So there you have, in a balance of what you said, just because I believe that I should have, does that mean that was going to happen? No. And then on the other part is, if I ever competed in the Honor Classic or the Ironman, I'm like, you're coming into my house, you're going to have to slaughter me to win. I didn't win all the time. So there it is. I believe that I am the SHIT. I lived in L.A. The Ironman was always in L.A. It's like, you're not going to beat me in my house. I done won 5 times. Come get me. But I lost once, right? Honor Classic, I'd won so many times and broke the record. I was like, it's a wrap. Maybe Olympia might be a battle. Come to the Arnold, it's a wrap. I'm going to win. I didn't win all the time. So the fact is, I truly believe in my heart, right? I believe that a book is written, and we have our roles to play in this book. And we have the ability to, like a script, we have the ability to go along with the script, or we could ad-lib and change it. I think everything that happened in my life was meant to happen for a specific reason. And, if I take any one of those things away, I wouldn't be the person who's sitting here in front of you right now.
Listening to everything you're talking to us about right now, I'm just curious when you started to be so transparent about who you were and who you are. Just because when you're talking to us about, when you're at the table with The Rock or when you're talking with other people, you would be super cocky and you kind of put forward a persona that wasn't really you. So, first off, back then, at those points in your career, did anybody really actually know who you were? And then secondly, now we are all getting to understand who you are, and all our listeners are understanding that. When did you become so comfortable just letting people know that?
Yeah, I remember clearly 3 people who would see through my superhero outfit, right? Say if I'm dressed up like Spider-Man, it looked like, I see you, Kenny, right? And they wouldn't even call me Flex. They're like, I see you, Kenny. One was a bodybuilder, and Tom Prince. I hated being around Tom Prince because he would just see me for who I am, and he would say something. I'd look at him, not literally turn around and walk away, because I tell myself I'm not effing being around him because I can't hide. And it was two other people, I can't remember their name, and they would just see me for who I am, and they would call me out on it. I'd be like, so I'll go even harder. So when you see me, I have a choice. With Tom, we were cool, so I would just turn around and walk away. With the other 2 people, we were cool, but not that type of relationship. So I'd go on an event of launching rockets at them, whether it's verbally slurring them, trying to anger them so that they no longer are reading me. Now they're engaged with me because I'm being, malicious towards them. Never worked. When did I start becoming comfortable with myself? Honestly, it was around the time that I found out that I had my kidney disease in 99. In 99, I rededicated my life to the man upstairs, and started studying the Bible a lot more, and Bible study and going to church, and just, you read stories about some of these men in the Bible, and you think they must be like 10,000 foot tall and weigh 1 billion pounds because of their strength. Abraham willing to kill his son. Who could do that, right? I couldn't. So, but you also listen to how human they were and some of their great failures. King David, right? King David, God said, he's a man who has a heart of mine. Yet King David had somebody killed because he was sleeping with his wife. So what that helped me to understand is everyone has something to hide. Everyone has some setback. And you look at, again, I'm not, preaching or, I'm just answering a question. You look at these great people in the Bible, they're very transparent, which made them even more human, even though they've done these unconceivable acts. So I started saying to myself, well, maybe I can just be me and stop hiding. And I just started, doing that. I never had a problem telling on myself, even as a kid. I never had it. I mean, if you're close enough to me, I'd tell you everything. And there's people that I would tell everything to. So I never had a problem. So it was easy for me to kind of come out of the closet and talk about these things, because that's not one of my weaknesses. I have tremendous weaknesses, but being honest and brutal about, gritty or grimy things, or maybe not the most worthiest things, I never had a problem talking about those things. And what I understand now is, I've been allowed to do some pretty cool things in life. And looking at other great people who've done greater things, they're almost not human, because of their greatness of what they've done. It's like you cannot even begin to dream like them or think you can ever be them. They're so far up there. You look at like even a rock now. It's like, what? Look at Michael Jordan. Look at the fame, the money. It's like, I can never dream to be that big, right? So what I and I'm not comparing myself to their greatness at all, but what I started thinking is, well, maybe I need to humanize myself more so that people can understand they can too. Just because you come from the ghetto doesn't mean that you're going to be a piece of crap. Just because, you're on welfare doesn't mean that, you can't be anything. And so I started talking about those things, especially the bad things like, being, molested or being homeless or being dyslexic, having no self-esteem or low self-esteem. I started being honest and talking about those things because I wanted people to dare to dream like, okay, well, if he made something of himself and he has this setback, well, that doesn't have to stop me either. So I just kind of wanted people just to kind of see me for who I am, and maybe they can dream that they can become something too, just because these other people are so pristine, or they present themselves so pristine, I can't relate to them. I don't even want to talk to you. If you haven't sinned greatly, if you haven't had incredible fallbacks or things that you don't want to talk about, you keep in a closet. If you're not that type of person, we got nothing in common. I'll go back to my street works, man. You don't know what it's like. You don't know what my life's like. I mean, you can't tell me nothing. You don't know what I go through, because you look at some of these people and you don't know what they went through. So, most people, when you've made it in their eyes, right, all they see is the glitz and the glory. They see none of the grit and the gory. So they separate themselves, and they personally know their grit and glory, their struggles. So I just try to be honest with mine so that they can see both, and then maybe that empowers them to dream and not be, anchored by their setbacks or their weaknesses.
This is what makes it so difficult to, talk to somebody like you. I think people think we're going to get on here and talk about your biceps, but it's like, we just can't, we don't have enough time to go over all the different things. But I think it's amazing that you have taken it upon yourself to study the body, mind, and spirit, and to do a thorough evaluation, of yourself throughout your life. Do you think that the early days of martial arts kind of prepped you for other aspects of life through training your body, mind, and spirit?
Yeah, definitely, man. I give my martial arts background credit to a lot of things. First and foremost, the man upstairs who made me to be who I needed to be, and to give me those tools. But, I have to take responsibility and being a Tyler of those tools and trying to master them. But my greatest martial arts teacher and mentor, and like a father to me, Tyrell McGuire, he just would train me that way. He's extremely militant. The guys is like ruthless, but he just prepared me for stuff like this. And it's a one-on-one sport. It's just me when I'm in a ring fighting, nobody else. I can't call in help. I'm not on the street, I can't call for my boys, so I'm going to get my ASS handed to me. There's nobody to get in there. And it's kind of the same thing on stage. But, on the other end, I love this quote by Sir Isaac Newton. It's, if I've seen farther than others, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. Well, anything that I've achieved because these giant men or women have helped me and hoisted me up higher. But I remember fighting, with Ty, sparring with him, and I was a top student in the class, and so I got to teach class a lot. But if there was ever an illustration, it was going to be me fighting him. And as great as a fighter as I was nowhere near close to him. And I would watch him fight other opponents at his ability, and I'd be like, I got so far to go. But in my class, I would just run through people, but I would never be cocky about it because I knew there's guys out there would run through me. But I remember fighting him all the time, and he would always punish me, right? Just punish me. And he was like a father figure. We would hang out all day. And, after months of this, I'm talking to the point where I'd be crying as a grown man because he's just punishing me. And we would hang out and we would, philosophize. We'd go shooting, whatever, and finally I was like, why do you do that to me? I'm like, you embarrass me in front of everybody, man. I'm like, he's supposed to be my boy. And, you always punish me in front of everybody. When we train, you hit me harder than you hit anybody else. Why you do that? And he was like, you should know. And he would never answer me. And he'd be like the type of person, he would call me like 3 o'clock in the morning, let's go train. And if I said no, I'm in for it for the rest of the week. So I'd never say no. I'd like, okay. So we'd be up, kicking up and down a football field in the middle of the dark, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd never say no. I just learned to shut my mouth. And that kind of helped me greatly when I had trainers like Charles Glass. Regardless of whatever, I just put my blinds on like, okay, fine, let's go. But I would keep asking him, and finally I was in tears. I was asking, like, why do you do that? And he said, you should know already. I go, I don't, man. Why don't you just tell me? Stop this philosophy. Stop just telling me. And he said, because I want you to be prepared for life. He said, if I train you this hard, no one in your category or nobody that you'll ever meet will ever be able to put you through something that you haven't been through already. I was like, wow. How come you couldn't just tell me that? He goes, because it wouldn't mean the same. It's different. It's something you got to learn. It's a journey. You got to learn on your own. He goes, but I fight you that hard. I hit you that hard because if you're ever anywhere and you're dealing with somebody and they're a beast, you can sit there and say, I've been through this. I can work my way through it. So I kind of apply that through everything in life moving forward, and that's kind of how I started creating the alter ego, FlexWheeler and all that stuff. So, man, I love martial arts. I've said it a million times. That was truly a sport to me. It's nothing, they call boxing a sweet science. I call martial arts a sweeter science because you not only have to worry about somebody's hands game, you got to worry about their feet game also. And, we would rate my kicking and we would time it. I easily kicked over 100 miles an hour. I'm sure some of you guys seen some of my fights that I put up on a video. My right leg was just ridiculous. There's nothing nobody can do about it. So, but to be able to fight someone, in a respectful way, we call it moving around. It's just so pure and beautiful. I mean, you're punishing your opponent, but it's out of tremendous respect, and iron sharpens iron. So imagine you're sharpening a knife and there's sparks and stuff coming from it and little pieces being torn from it to make it finer. That's just beautiful, man, and you can take that type of discipline and apply it towards anything in life. You're going to be successful. And I think, applying just that hard training, being in the hells and the bowels of training and not being happy. But I truly understood that when I'm at my most unhappy and most uncomfortable is when I'm at my finest of training. And I need to be in that hellhole to be able to create this beautiful diamond. You look at a diamond, how it's formed, hot, deep, hell, torment. But what comes out of there is just unbreakable thing. And that's kind of how I viewed myself. I got to go into this pure hell and beat my body and enslave it to do my works of wonder when I walk on stage.
You had some just crazy things that you went through that were very public. You know, you went through the car accident, and then you went through the thing with your kidneys. And then more recently, I think you had like your leg amputated or something happened with your leg. Excuse me for I don't know the full story on what happened to your leg. What did happen with your leg?
So. It's a DVT, deep vein thrombosis. I had been dealing with it for probably about 2 years before I lost my leg. Incredible pain, and it continued to get worse. I still travel all around the world, and there would be some times where I couldn't even walk through an airport. I would just stop, and I'd be in tears. I was going out every specialist. I live here in Henderson, Vegas, Nevada, and I went to every specialist you could think of. I have some pretty incredible friends who would introduce me to some of the greatest doctors, and I'm going to all of them, and nothing's getting better. I even went to the emergency room a couple of times over the years, and they would like, oh, you pull the muscle. You know, they put my leg in a cast, they put in a splint, and I'm like, you guys are idiots. You know, I've torn muscles before. This ain't a damn torn muscle, you know.
What hurts specifically, like your foot or your calf or your shin or something?
So to explain it to you, and what was happening is it's a lactic acid like burn. Like, so when you're training and your butt muscle starts burning, normally you stop, right? Because it gets too much. Well, that's what would happen when I'm walking. That build up, and it would burn, but it wouldn't go away. And when I stopped walking, it'd take about 20 minutes for it to subside. That's a long time to the point it breaks you. So what truly was happening was the blood flow was being cut off. So imagine, you know, your muscles as a lactic acid build up. They're starving for more oxygen, for more blood. Well, my complete lower, below my calf, below my knee was being cut off from blood supply. So that buildup was getting greater and greater and greater because there was no blood flow. We didn't know what was going on. To fast forward, long story short, I got very upset with my doctor, you know, to say the least. He got extremely upset and said, you know, I just said some choice words. We're very close, and he respected that. And I said, we got to do something more. This is bullshit, man. You know, there's no way in the world that I should be hurting like this. We had tried everything. So he said, you know what, let me call in for a ultrasound. I was like, okay. Because I had, you know, everything else, x-rays and all this garbage. And went in for an ultrasound, and geez, like within 5 seconds, the lady found it. And she just stopped and stared at me, you know, probably for like 10 seconds. That's a long time. You know, 10 seconds of silence is a long time. And her eyes got watery. So, you know me, I'm an emotional person. I look at her and I'm like, my eyes are getting watery. I'm like, what? You know, what is it that you see? And she goes, do you have a staph or something in your leg? Do you have a, you know, artificial, artery or something? I'm like, no. I go, I have one in my groin for my kidney transplant. When I had my kidney transplant, my donor, when they got us on the operating table, her main artery from her kidney was too short. So they had to go into my left quad and take out my main artery to make her artery long enough. And then they replaced it with a plastic stent or graft. So no, I said I had a graft in my groin area, but you know, it goes to my right leg, but I don't have a stent in my calf. She goes, okay. So she kept going, and she literally just started crying. So I started crying. I go, please tell me, what do you see? She goes, I can't. She goes, you know, they can't tell you anything. You know, I'll turn it into the doctor, you know, blah, blah, blah. And when she broke down in tears, you know, so did I. And I just begged her, please, you got to tell me, what do you see? She said, who have you been to? I told her everybody. I told the hospital. She goes, no, that's not possible. Those are some of the greatest hospitals we have here in Henderson. They should have seen it, you know, within seconds ago. Seen what? She goes, either you have a graft in your calf that you don't know about, or I'm looking at the biggest blood clot I've ever seen in my life. So that got my attention, and she goes, I got to stop. I got to call a stat. I got to get the emergency team in here. I go, really? Is that bad? She goes, you'll have no idea how bad it is. So I had to wait there an hour, and they came in and did their stuff, and they said, all right, your doctor's going to call you. We're going to go ahead and release you. And I said, okay. She goes, don't worry, he's going to call you. He can explain. I can't tell you no more. So I'm driving home, and I pull up in my garage, and my doctor calls me. And he goes, where are you? In an urgent, voice. And I said, just put up my garage. He goes, wow. He goes, Flex, I'm surprised you even made it home. I go, what do you mean by that, man? He goes, it's bad. I go, how bad, man? I'm supposed to be going to the Honor Classic Australia. My flight leaves in 2 days. He goes, Flex, I wouldn't get on that flight if I was you. I'm like, listen, you don't understand my game. They already paid my flight. This is a first class ticket, so you're talking thousands of dollars. Hotel's already booked. I'm already announced to be there. You don't back out of these situations. And he said, Flex, if you were my family member, I wouldn't let you get on that flight. I go, man, tell me what's going on. He goes, you have a DVT. I'm like, what the f- is that? I don't know what that is. He goes, I don't have time to explain. Get down here. I'm going to give you some medication and some blood thinners, and we're going to see if we can break it up. So, again, fast forward, I'm still going to go to Australia. I got to make money. This is what we do, right? So the day before I take my flight, I'm packing my clothes, and I can't even walk around my house to pack my clothes. I'm in so much pain, and I lay down and I go to sleep crying because I'm in so much pain, and I wake up at night, and it's about 10 o'clock at night, and I can't feel my right leg. I can't feel my arm. I can't feel my chest. I can't feel my junk, my groin. And I remember parts of movies where people say, they couldn't feel their arm and it was a heart attack, I'm like, God dang it. So I called him, my doctor, and I said, hey man, I can't feel my leg, nothing. He goes, get to the hospital now. I'm calling in. They go, why? I go, I've been to these bastards 3 times. They don't know what the freak they're doing. He goes, get there and tell them you got a DVT. I'm like, dude, what is that? He goes, but you don't have time. Just get there. My stupid butt, right? I stop at Burger King before I go because I'm like, I'm going to be there a couple hours. I'm hungry. I want something to eat. So I'm like, at least I'll be full. So anyway, I get there and all that such all crap hits the fan. I get there. My blood pressure is, you're going to think this is crazy, but my blood pressure was 210 over 205. So when I got there, I'm joking, and when I look at my blood pressure, everybody just stops. And more doctors and nurses are walking around, and they're just staring at me. How do you feel? I'm like, my leg hurts. He goes, that's it? I'm like, yeah. He goes, okay. How bad does it hurt? I go, bad enough for a grown man to be crying here in front of you. And I'm like, okay, so, we're going to get you out of pain. So they drug me up, and it just goes downhill from there. Long story short, they put me under, and I don't remember anything else. What I'm telling you now is from everybody telling me. I literally signed a consent that they could put me under because they had to go into my vein and try to do these blood clot busters or whatever. And I was moving around too much because I was in pain. And I guess they put me under, and they were telling one of my family members they still can't do the surgery because I was still moving around. And the doctor was yelling at my family member because she was saying, give him more than, because she was, she went to medical school. And he goes, no, we've given him enough to kill a horse. And it's, it's still fighting us in a coma. So I was in coma for 10 days. I was in the hospital for 4 months. And when I came out of my coma, I didn't know what the hell was going on. Again, long story short, they done all these surgeries. They thought they saved the leg. Actually, I even put the video on Instagram where the doctor said, I think we salvaged the right leg. But it was something inside me. I just knew it didn't work. And I even remember telling my family members, I won't be walking too long. I'm going to lose my leg. And they thought I was giving up. It's like, you can't say that you're giving up. I'm like, no, I can tell. So, I got out of hospital, I think it was in June. I went back to the emergency room probably 30 times during that time, just in incredible pain. And it got to the point where they finally started saying, Flex, listen, there's no other surgeries we can do. We've done every surgery imaginable. there's no more arteries, there's no more veins there for us to attach. The only other surgery we can do is take your leg when a time comes. So I started preparing myself mentally that, I was going to lose my leg and being comfortable with it. I was in Billings, Montana on a business meeting to open up my own nutrition company, and I couldn't even walk around. I was just in tears, and everybody was asking me what was wrong. I was like, nothing, I'm okay. I got back to the airport, and I was with a business partner of mine. I could barely walk to the airport, and I'm just sobbing. And he's looking at me like, Flex, how the hell are you going to go to, and I was supposed to leave to go to Dubai for a month. He goes, how the hell, and I was supposed to leave in 2 days. How the hell are you going to get, work in Dubai, and you can't even walk in the airport? And it came over, and I'm like, damn, I'm going to have to cancel. I can't go. And I just made my mind up. I go, man, when I get back home, I'm just going straight to the ER. So I contacted my wife, and I said, hey, this is what's going on. I'm just going to go to the ER. She goes, all right, well, when you get there, I'll meet you. Let me know when you land. And when I landed, I told her, hey, listen, I'm on my way to ER. She goes, you know what, Flex, just come home and I'll drive you. Got to the ER, same ER I had been going to, that I was in the hospital for 4 months. And they did an MRI, ultrasound, I'm sorry. And she came back, she just stared at me. She goes, we're at that point in time now. And I go, what do you mean? And she's like, 90% of your calf on your right side is 90% blocked, and on the left side, it's blocked 100%. And I was just like, take it. She goes, you sure? I'm like, yeah, just take it. And my wife was like, we need to talk about this. We're like, no, we need to talk about shit. This is my leg. I'm the one who's going through this. I said, take it. And I go, plus, if you're saying I have that type of blood clot, it could break free and kill me, right? She goes, that's very true. I go, just take it. Just take it.
Wow. And so are you missing from the knee down?
Yeah, I'm below the knee, BK. Yeah, I'm below the knee. And
then how has your pain been since that time?
Yeah, worse, actually. Sadly to say, during the surgeries that they were doing to try to save my leg, it caused tremendous nerve damage. We call it neuropathy. And actually, one of the times I almost died in the hospital. One of the times they actually had the stent that I told you, or the graft that I told you was in my groin. They have reason to believe that it's the main factor that caused the DVT, because it started failing. And they were explaining to me that, it's plastic and it was never meant to last 15 years. Technology had gotten better. I'm like, damn. Like, they'll give you a recall on your freaking seatbelt, in a car, but you guys never called me to let me know that, might want to come in and have this damn thing looked at. So after all the surgeries, the doctor, before they took my leg when I was in the hospital for 4 months, he actually decided to create a new graft. And that graft goes from my pec here, and it goes all the way down to my right leg. And they thought, that's when he said, in a video, we think we saved it. Well, even in that, of course, anatomy, all your veins come into this area. So they damaged all the veins where I lost uses of my right side, my pec, my shoulder, my arm for, 3 months. I couldn't even use my right arm. And it caused tremendous nerve damage and neuropathy where, it hasn't came back yet. So I'm in constant pain like that. And one of the pictures I showed on Instagram of my once powerful bicep, it just sags over. I can't even flex or make it move or anything like that. So the pain I go through, it's neuropathy and also phantom pain from losing my limb. So, it is what it is. I don't want to make it seem like a sob story. I want to, end this on by saying, you asked me before, were you ever happy? Never. Winning shows, all the money I've made, all the crazy cars, never. Once I lost my leg and I decided, before they took my leg, I said, I want to be a spokesperson for a transplant. I want to be a spokesperson for amputees. I really feel that, God didn't allow me to go through. He didn't allow me to go through all this in life. for no reason. And I felt that every battle that I had, every great thing that I did was to prepare me for this. And I just made my mind up, man, I can't be this global name and figure. And then when the worst thing imaginable happened to me, go duck and hide. So that's when I started doing all these interviews with myself on camera while I was in the hospital, because I just knew I wanted to bring awareness to this and to people who are amputees and so on. So it's great. And, to finish answering your other question about me being happy, first time in the world I've ever been happy. I remember the first time I went to the airport to pick up my daughters because they were coming to see me after I had lost my leg. And I was sitting there in my wheelchair with my wife, and I was like, wow, this is so embarrassing. And she goes, what? I go, just having everybody look at me like this. She goes, oh, Flex, don't worry about them. And then she stopped. She goes, you know what? I'm going to shut up because I don't know what it's like what you're going through. But I was like, it's sad because people look at me with empathy when they have no idea I'm so happy. So you might look at all those great pictures and videos of me and like, wow, this dude must be happy. You look at him. I hated myself. And it took for me to lose my leg to find complete and utter happiness. I don't care about what I look like when I go in public. I don't care if I'm sitting straight or standing straight. So it's brought me so much joy and happiness. It's a gift. I think it happened to me, and now I can help people who are in a genre that I could never help before.
I think what you brought up is really interesting because, okay, now someone can physically see that you're missing something. So somebody, they may pity that. They may have empathy towards that because they might say, this is all I know is to live this way with two legs. I wonder what it's like to be him. I wonder what it's like to live the way that you're living. But we don't do that enough sometimes when we're thinking about, and I don't mean pity, but we don't put ourselves in people's shoes enough to have good consideration of somebody else's perspective. You mentioning you grew up in the ghetto, and you mentioning you guys didn't have money and you were abused, and all these things. The interactions that maybe you and I have, maybe we come to like a misunderstanding, and maybe from my perspective, I should think, well, maybe that guy's got some shit going on in his life that I just don't know anything about. So I think sometimes it's good to have these recognitions, and with what you have right now, people can clearly see it. And so I think it allows you to be a spokesman for this side of things in a maybe more obvious circumstance. Yeah.
When you go through, a lot of my military buddies, they call it dark waters. When you just inhale, you're just, it's like being out in the middle of the ocean and it's pitch dark. You feel like that. When you go through really dark times like that, unless you're a complete idiot or not self-aware, I'll take that back from being an idiot. You look at other people and you'll give them space. You'll give them a second look because you don't know what they're going through. Again, before we all agreed, all you see of a person is their greatness and what they've done. You have no idea how hard. And so you might feel some type of way because they have this, but you don't know what hell they've been through. So, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I choose to be transparent now. I know some people look at it as a weakness and, oh man, you can never say that as a punk move. I wasn't talking to you. You know what I mean? My message wasn't for you. A lot of people gave me some crap when I went back on Olympia stage because I didn't look like the guy I was before. I'm like, this message wasn't for you. This message, I went back on Olympia stage because I wanted to show people just through the worst unthinkable things, you don't have to stop fighting. You can get up in the morning. And if I can go through everything I've been through and get back on stage with more scars and, having a fight with Freddy Krueger and Jason, if I can get back up on this stage and still try to fight, maybe I can inspire you just to get up. Because sometimes, man, when you're going through depression like I go through, or, when you're suicidal, I've been suicidal all my life and still is, it's just trying to make it through the next second. It's a challenge. And I just want to show people who was in that type of environment, man, we can still keep fighting and try to just be a little bit of a bright light for them. So for everybody who didn't understand the message or don't understand the message that I'm saying now, man, that's great. I'm happy you don't know what I'm talking about. because that means you don't know and you haven't experienced what I've experienced. But for the people who have, yeah, I'm talking to you, and you truly understand what I'm talking about.
You know, I'm curious about this because when a lot of people look at you and your history, you're an amazing bodybuilder, you're a martial artist. It seemed that like your focus at that time was into your body, right? And now, obviously after the surgeries, and you're still going to be recovering, you're going to be, and you are doing more physical things, but it's like the focus has been taken away from the body itself. And now it's like, there's a lot of focus on your mind. You were bringing up a lot of spirituality. How has your identity shifted? Like you personally, like what, I mean, obviously there are physical differences now with you, but in terms of your focus on a day-to-day basis, how has that changed?
You know, it's weird. I've been going through this, it's like Pulp Fiction, when the great Samuel Jackson said, you're lucky because you got me a transitional stage in my life, or else I would have offed you. So I've been going through a transitional stage for a while now, for a while I've been going through that. I didn't like the type of person I was. I never did. I never liked the person I was. I hated myself for the way I thought about my things, the way I did things. I hated myself. And I would talk to certain people about that. Rico was one I was brutally honest with. I remember telling Rico, I had a 7-story house in Venice on Main Street, right? And I had there was a 2-car garage, and one side of my garage was a brand new SL 500 when it first came out, and on the other side was a brand new Harley. And I could never leave the house without a couple of $100 in my pocket. Out of my ignorance and not knowing, I didn't know what a credit card was. I didn't know. I didn't know any of that. I didn't grow up understanding any of that. Nobody taught that to me. But I remember we're driving around Beverly Hills, and my 500 SL was top down, me and Rico, and I said, Rico, man, I go, wow, money don't make you happy, do it? And he's like, damn, Flex, you finally realized that, huh? So, he knew me as a person, and Robin Chain, who is an incredible friend of mine, I remember we're sitting in my jacuzzi one day, and I said the same thing. I go, man, money and women don't make you happy, do it? He goes, no. It goes like a big black hole. You just pour crap into it. It's just like devours it and eats it and wants more, but more so when bad things started happening to me, when I started, kind of when I knew I was going to lose my kidney due to FSGS. And I thought I'd be able to come back from it. I still thought I was going to be able to come back and compete in Olympia the next year, because I did, I broke my neck C5 and C6, and I was in Olympia months later. I'm like, oh, I'm going to bounce back from this. And I remember the doctors telling me there's no coming back from this one. I remember even talking to Bruce Buffer, because I was going to go into K1 at the time, because I was like, you know what, I'll just switch gears, man. I'll go and fight. I can't compete anymore. I can't take what I need to take. I'll go and fight. And so we're actually talking about setting up me a match. And I think my match at that time was going to be Bob Sapp, to fight him, which I haven't talked about too much. But, so I was like, man, I'm going to kill it. People have no idea, my fighting skills, so I was in a hospital for almost a year, my kidney transplant. I had 11 surgeries in 9 weeks that I almost died from. So when I went in the hospital, I weighed 260 pounds, and I just came off stage. I think I was like 2% body fat. When I got out of the hospital, I was 198 pounds and just skin and bones. So what happened is I just got beaten down so much from life. I just gave in. I just gave up on all of that and just started being me. And I didn't care about being anything special anymore. I just wanted to live. And I remember talking to God the whole time and saying, wow, you got a sick sense of humor. Here it is, from the age of like 14, I've been trying to kill myself. And now you turn it around and I'm actually fighting to be here. Like, dude, you got it. Like, wow, you got me. So that's when I started changing. I think I'm still changing. As I talk to my sons, I always tell them, listen, you're ahead of me. You haven't made as mistakes that I had. It took me 54 years to get to the man I am now. And I'd rather live 2 seconds of this age of what I am now than any more of the 54 years before this. So it's just a transitional stage. It's kind of a double-edged sword, because when you really view yourself and look at yourself in the mirror of all the bad things you've done, it's not good. You make a choice and either lying to yourself or saying, I deserve this, or I'm better than this, but, I just didn't. So I had to start saying, I have to accept myself. I got to accept me. And sometimes that's really hard to accept that this is who you are. And, I had to start telling myself, you need to learn to love yourself, more so than you love other things. I love my cars more than I did, right? I love my clothes more, because I took better care of them. Mm. Dude, don't touch my car. It's always going to be spotless, but yet I was stained. So it's just a transition stage, homie, that I'm going through. I'm continuously going through, and I don't want my legacy to be, FlexWheeler, some guy who was pretty good on freaking posing and training. I just want my legacy to be, that I was a person who cared and wanted to help other people.
Earlier, you said how everything's kind of like an opinion, and I'm a big believer in a lot of this as well, and also a big believer that beliefs are they're made up. We happen to make them up, and then I don't know why we hang on to them for so long, or we hold them so dear to our heart, and sometimes they're wrong. Do you believe that happiness is kind of the same way? Like, you can just do you believe that like, I guess for yourself, like, do you feel you have access to happiness, and you've always had access to happiness? You just didn't know how to feel happy?
Sure. No,
like, it's a choice.
See, I'm aware of that now, right? It's what you make of it, right? Life is what you make of it. And, I think everybody has a quality of that where, say your dog just got hit, or you broke up with your girlfriend. What are you going to do? You're going to listen to sad music, right? Misery loves company. I think that's who we are as a person. Or we can change. There's certain people out there who will snap out of that rut, like, you know what? I got to get out of that rut. So, knowing that there's a lot of things that happened in my early childhood that stained me to have negative and hardship, but I didn't have to stay there. For whatever reason, I was just locked into that, and I still deal with those demons now. But of course, it's like I said before, it's perception. So an example of all of the things that happened to me before, now I say, I have a different saying, life deals you lemons. And, life deals everyone lemons. Everyone is going to go through something. So instead of looking at it bad, like a sour lemon, I'm like, you know what? Let me take this lemon and make lemonade out of it, and make the best lemonade I can, and have people drink from my cup of knowledge of what I've been through, so that they don't have to. Dude, it's the same situation, right? It's just my perception of how I looked at it, right? So that completely answers your answer, your question on what is that great saying? A cup is just half full, right? Cup is half full. I can look at this cup and be like, damn, I only got half left. God dang it. Or I could be like, man, you know what? Dude, I drank half and I still got half left. Are you kidding me? That cup is just half, dude. It's my perception of how I looked at it. And sometimes you just got to change your focus, in life, your outlook. So yeah, that capability is in all of us. Might be easier for some and harder than others. So,
I want to ask you this, because it was only 3 years ago when you wanted to make a comeback back to the stage in 2017, and you actually did go back to the stage in classic physique, and I think you placed 15th. Now, what prompted you to, after this long time of not competing at all and everything that's happened, to shoot, I'm just going to get back on the stage again?
For years, people had asked me to come back and compete, and I always would tell them, "Are you kidding me, man? If you knew how many scars I had all over my body, like I said earlier, it's like, I got jumped by Freddy Krueger and Jason, and they both had their way with me. They both whooped my ass. But it was always inside me. I got yanked away from, my lifestyle. Everybody else got to walk away. They got to, hey, it's my last time, thank you, and all that. I got ripped away, and it always bothered me deeply. But I knew I wasn't me anymore, right? I got one kidney. It's in front now. It bulges out, certain things I can't do. I've had, horrible back surgeries. My L5 and was it L4, L5 is degenerated over 90%, 99% now. And so I can't even do certain movements. If I bend over improperly, I'll hit the ground and be on my way to the hospital. So that limits surgery, right? I waited too long for one of my back surgeries, so my sciatic nerve killed my right calf. Doesn't even fire anymore. So I'm like, how can I go up on stage with so many defects, and continuously going through life and meeting and talking to other people? It's like, how can I not go up on stage now? And actually, the big motivator was Stan. We trained. He goes, man, you should come back, Flex. You come back. I'm like, are you kidding me? What do you want? You set me up for failure? You know what I look like, right? It's like, no, I think, I think it'd be a great success story, everything you've been through. And I'm like, but my mind frame was the FlexWheeler guy. How can I go on stage being in imperfections, glaring imperfections, and I remember Danny Hester, a close friend, he's a training partner of mine, my training videos, he won the Classic Physique Olympia, and I remember talking to him that Sunday. I was like, wow, man, congratulations, this, that, and others. He goes, man, Flex, you can do this. And Kevin had just already competed, and I'd seen the backlash that he had, because he wasn't the Kevin of old. And no matter what, when you achieve kind of the levels that we have on stage, you can't come back and compete against that man. It's like, as great as Jordan was, when he came back, he wasn't a Jordan that he was before he left. Part of the time, he was undefeated, right? Regardless of whether we believe it or not. So I knew I couldn't go back and compete against those guys. I would get walked on. Plus, I can't do the things that they possibly are doing to look that way. So like, well, this class physique, I could probably do that, because I was already walking around like 230 and so on. I can do that. So to answer your question, I just wanted to make a statement. I always said, and I didn't want to have nobody get it twisted, I was going up there because I thought I was going to walk on everybody. I kept saying, I just want to stand up on stage with these great young men. I want to be able to say goodbye to everyone. But more so, like I said earlier, just for people who deal with depression, people who deal with being suicidal, people who deal with trash victims, people who, who just have been through a lot in life. Like I said, sometimes, man, it's just hard getting through the next minute of the day. And I just wanted to go on stage and show them, like, look, here I am, imperfect in every way. But if I can go and do everything I can to go back on the greatest stage in the world, maybe you can just get through the next minute. Maybe you can get through the next hour. Maybe you can just, live a little better. Maybe you can eat better. Because sometimes when I'm going through my hellhole of darkness, I won't even eat. I'll go through days without eating. And to be honest with you, sometimes I don't even take my medication because I just don't care. So it was just to promote people and myself to do better. And that's the real reason why I went up there. And, I was a little upset because I am so competitive, because I looked way better a couple of weeks before I went into the show and things didn't go right. And I was really mad and hurt. And And I remember Rico, again, who was there supporting me. I was telling him how upset I was because he knew I showed him pictures and videos of what I looked like, 2 weeks before. He goes, Flex, why did you go up there? And I wanted to go up there to inspire people. He goes, oh, but you did that. You did that. And I go, not really, man. I could have looked better. He goes, so would you prefer to go up there and win? Or would you prefer to go up there and inspire people? I said, inspire people. He goes, you did that. Let the rest go. I said, okay. So, yeah, I just want to inspire people, man.
It's having a friend like Rico McClinton is awesome. Like whenever I think, like even just as you're talking about him, I can't think about him without thinking of his big smile. Like that's the kind of guy that even just when you see him from across the room in the gym, you just automatically start smiling. He's going to have some wise ass remark, or he's going to say something funny or something silly. He's going to make fun of you or just be positive. Sometimes he just comes up and he's just super positive. I always admired that from some other people that can pull that off all the time. I don't know how they do it. What are some things, in coming in contact with Stan Efferding over the years? Stan is very like stoic and I don't think Stan has ever had a depressed day in his life, but I don't know, maybe he has. What has it been like having a friend like that who maybe in some aspects is a little different than you are?
Yeah, he's completely different than I am. You're right. Never met anybody like him. We met because he was a client of mine, and I was charging an audacious amount of money to train people. I told the story before, so I'm sure he doesn't mind. I was charging $500 a session. Okay. Stan paid for him and a friend to train with me for months, twice a day. Didn't blink. And when I started to get to know him, I got to know very quickly how intelligent he was, and kind of intimidating intelligence, because you don't see him coming. You don't see him coming at all. And I remember we clashed with my theories on training versus his and dieting. And at the time, I needed to generate that money. And I was like, if I open my big mouth, I could mess with my money. Maybe this dude went to school for all this. Maybe I just, back up. But I just stood my ground. And I said, this is the reason why. And we talked about it. And he goes, okay. He goes, you're a legend. I'm not. I'll follow suit. And I was like, wow. And, he's done videos where he said, I took him in places he's never been before, where he thought he was going to die. But he's just different. So you got to understand. And I told him, I go, for a while, people aren't going to like you. He goes, why? And he's a very likable, very nice guy. I go, in this sport, you're going to have some demons. You're going to have some people who don't like you, bro. He's like, why? And I go, Stan, most of us got in this sport to make a living, pay our bills, take care of our family. I go, you walk around with a black card in your back pocket, right? You own mansions, you own businesses. You're not hurting for money. So a lot of people are going to be looking at you, what the you doing here, dog? You're taking money away from our plate. He goes, really? You think so? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. So what type of man was very successful in all the avenues that he was at that time would go in the gym and be punished twice a day? I mean, the other person, I won't say their name, but it's not hard to find out. And I'm not saying a name for bad reasons, but he would pass out. I'd have to pour cold water on him sometimes. And Stan would lay down on the verge of passing out, and he would laugh. On the verge of passing out, he would just laugh and say, I love this shit. And I would look at him, and I'd like, what's wrong with you, man? We would be eating. I would go and make sure, because he actually moved from Seattle, Washington to San Jose, where I was living, and he stayed in what is it called? He stays on the still now. I hate him for doing it. Extended stay.
So he can cook and everything.
There's this man coming from his mansion, living in an extended stay, 2-bedroom extended stay. And he'd be like, I love this shit. And we would go and eat, and he would tell me that his teeth hurt, from just eating steak, because all I fed him was steak. And he goes, man, I got to go to the dentist. My teeth are hurting. They're loose. And he was just like, I love this shit. And I'm like, wow, you're different. So we became incredible friends. And I asked him one time, what happened when, and I think it was around 2005, 6, 7, when economy hit and a lot of people lost money in real estate. He goes, I went to bed, I woke up, and I was $1 million in a hole. I'm like, wow, damn. And if you remember back then, there was people, millionaires, who were committing suicide. And sadly. And I asked him, I'm like, what did you do? And he's like, sold my Bentley and I went back to work. I go, what? He goes, yeah, I sold my Bentley, sold some of my properties, and I went back to work. And I was like, wow, man. You got rid of your Bentley? He goes, yeah, I didn't need it. Needed work, needed money, needed capital. I was like, wow, you're different, man. But he's been a pillar of strength for me. He's someone that I can truly be Kenny Wheeler around. I remember when we first started really getting to know each other, and I'm being brutally honest about my struggles. And I would always tell him, I go, wow, you're probably embarrassed. You probably let down that, this FlexWheeler persona guy isn't really that. I'm like, the old Wizard of Oz. I'm in this big, huge feature, but behind the closed windows, the curtains, I'm this little guy moving things around. He goes, no. He goes, actually, I respect you so much more, for the person that you are. So one of my closest friends in the world, been extremely helpful through all this, for all my problems that I had, back surgeries and the amputee. And, I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for him. Solid guy, strong. I only seen him get upset twice because I never thought he'd get upset. And the 2 times he got upset, I was like, okay, don't want to see you get upset anymore. I got to tell one of them. Yes. Both were about food, too. We were at a show. And we were in a rental car on our way back to go eat. And some taxi driver pulled in front of him. And he was hungry. And he looked at the door, put up a sign, and rolled down the window. And the door was like, fuck you. He's like, no, fuck with me. Fuck with him. So he chased the guy, like, Stan, cool down. Fuck you. And then the other time we were going to the airport, and they made him throw away his food. And he got lit. So he's mad. And there was a guy looking at him. And it was a woman. Trying to throw away his food, so he was lit. I ain't gonna say everything he said, but it was another guy, who was staring at him, and he looked up and, fuck you looking at me. Forgive me for cussing and everything, but I was like, wow. So I used to always tease him. We'd travel around, the world, and I'd be like, Stan, you know what? People probably think we're the oddest couple in the world. Because here I am, this tattooed guy. I look like I don't act. They probably think I'm some hard and cat out the prison or whatever. And I go, look at you, freaking big, huge white dude, bald. I go, you look like freaking some KKK or freaking Hell's Angel guy. You look, and in certain clubs, they have what they call thumpers. So they're the guy who will go out and fight your number one guy. And that'll keep them from killing everybody. So I'm like, you look like you freaking thumper from the HHA, man. Freaking hands this big. And so what are these 2 guys doing with each other? And so I would just laugh, when people were staring at us, I'm like, I changed them. I used to be in the HHA, Hell's Angel and, KKK, and I transferred him over. So he's cool now, So, but he's an amazing guy, amazing husband, amazing dad. He continues to set the bar and upset me, by him continuing just doing better, because it forces me to do better. And Even him when he's doing his squats and he just did another one with some damn 6 or 7 plates on it, I always send him a text like, F you, man, because he's still just doing it. He's a great guy, man. Too bad there's not more men like that out there in the world, but amazing friend to me. And, yeah.
I know his wife hates those extended stays. She gets pissed. She's like, she actually, they came over to a place that we were renting when my wife and I were in Los Angeles, and we rented this beautiful house on the beach in Malibu. And she just looked at Stan. She's like, Stan will never do shit like this for me. And he's like, we got to stay at the extended stay, babe. She's like, that's what I'm talking about. So he was getting roasted.
No, and the same thing, we would go somewhere and, he'd rent a Volkswagen. He did it a couple of times. A Volkswagen, man. So we're touching shoulder to shoulder and, jokingly, I won't say it anymore, but I used to say I'm a homophobic, and I found out that that's a derogatory comment towards him. So I don't use it anymore, but I am very conscious of men, and let me be clear. I don't care if you're, gay, lesbian, whatever, man. You have a right to be whatever you want, regardless of whether I agree with it or not. You have a right, and you should live the life the way you want, regardless if my feelings are different. But he rented this little tiny car. I'm like, dude, come on, man. I got an image. Are you kidding me? He goes, Flex, this is a damn rent a car. Why am I going to spend money on a car that ain't mine? And he's just that type of guy. He's so secure with himself that when I rent a car, it got to be the highest end car. I'm blowing money. I need to be seen. He goes, who gives a damn what people see? It's who you are. And I'm like, only a rich person would say that, man, But it's not true. He's just very comfortable in himself. You'll never see him wear an expensive watch. Most of the time, his tennis shoes are not even tied up. I remember going in his closet when he lived in Seattle, and I took a video of laughing, like the clothes he had in there was like outdated flannel and stuff. I'm like, what the hell? Who wears this, man? And he's just comfortable in himself, man. It's an old street term we used to use, back before. I don't need to pimp my ride because there's a pimp in my ride. That's Stan. He don't need to show off as a man because he is a man.
Yeah, he told me about some of those brutal workouts he used to have him do, and I think he said you would do like 10 sets of 10 in the AM session and 10 sets of 10 in the PM session. Ooh. I've never heard of anything like that before. That's like, some German volume training times two. That sounds brutal.
I created my 20s, and he takes it now. He's like, yeah, 20s will change your life. But I didn't know it, but I was always studying. I was always mental. I was always cerebral, right? Overthink things. And I remember, I started doing 20s. Even me, Enrico, and Chris, we got to the point where we could put like over 25 plates on a leg press and we can do reps of 20s. It wouldn't bother us. We condition ourselves to be able to do that. And, a lot of people back then would say, you can't do high reps like that. It destroy the muscle. And I was like, wow, historically, you look at some of the guys who have the biggest chests in the world, biggest arms in the world, they're in prison. All they do is bench and work arms every day. And, I had some buddies who used to be in prison. They send me pictures, cats with like freaking 60-inch chests, and they put a Coke bottle on it and they make it pop and jump up. I'm like, how is that? Oh, they do it every day. And, I start studying like Olympic skaters that skate around oval. Some of the most massive, round, full quads you can imagine. How is that possible when every day they train legs? Every day they're basically in a squat position skating. How is that possible? So it's like it's a fluke. That's not true. If you can use repetitions with maximum to medium weight, it will cause greater growth, and some muscles aren't powerful enough to carry a lot of weight, like your calves. They carry you all day long. They're an endurance muscle. You're not going to crack them. You're not going to kill them by going super, super heavy. They'll fail that way. You can't curl freaking 30 times all day or 100 times all day. How many steps you take a day? No other body part can do that. So how can you train it the same? So I'm like, So I started doing reps of 20s. I would do 4 sets. So 1 rep of 20, drop 1 rep of 20, drop 1 rep of 20. That's 1 set. And that's how my calves started growing. And everybody knows about 21s, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody knows about 21s. Half up, half down, 7, 7, 7, right? Whenever you do 1 set, you're like crying. You don't want no more. You got to be very mental. Could continue 3 more sets. And I'm like, how is that possible? So I started just applying that to all muscle groups. And what I came up with is, as you get older, like an old fort like me, you can't move the same type of weight. But if you change it and include those repetitions in there, you can create the same type of workload without causing a stress on the muscles. You can cause the same type of fatigue, and you actually get more blood into the muscles. On top of that, it's a cardio workout too. HIIT training came out. So it's kind of the same thing. And I remember Stan even counseling me on it. He's like, I'm not going to say no training system. But, he goes, a lot of these training systems are based off of things that you did all your life. I go, I know, I hate that. They come up with these great names like TF34, and they're doing the same stuff. I'm like, damn it, man. I go, I'm tired of these people being smarter than me and marketing something. He goes, and even like, he doesn't hide his diet that he has out now is based on a diet that he did with me. And it's no insult, at all. But, once again, he's just great. But that's how I came up with my philosophy of training. Definitely.
It's definitely a training style, though, that a lot of people are not willing to do because it's so damn painful.
You're right. And even back when we were, when I was training, I always knew, my limit for some reason on squatting was 6 plates. I just couldn't do more. I would blow blood vessels in my eyes. I would shoot blood out or whatever. But if people are around, I chose to go heavy and do like 5 or 6, then to freaking drop that thing down to 315 and hit 20. I didn't want none of that. Because then my heart is aching, my legs feel like they're about to explode, and mentally, I'm gone. It's way easier to go heavy and knock out a few. It takes, and my clients now, they argue with me like, can I change to doing something else? I'm getting still, and I'm like, bull crap. Well, I've been doing the same work, and I'm like, bull crap. Listen, if you ever played football, doing a down and out, it's a down and out the same way you did in Pop Warner. It's the same way you do it in the NFL. What's different? You've mastered it. And what makes it different, you can do it better. So as you advance, you don't have to change anything. You advance, and that makes it harder. So advance and push harder. If you're getting ready to squat 1 billion pounds, you're going to get mental. You're going to get psyched. You're going to look at this. That's the difference. If you're squatting 1 pound, you're just going to get on there and do it. The movement is the same. If I'm boxing or if I'm doing a side kick, my side kick is the same as it was when I was an amateur. It's just I'm more proficient at it now. Bruce Lee put it best. I fear not the man who practices 1,000 kicks. I fear the man who practices 1 kick 1,000 times. So it's the intensity that changes your workout, not the workout. It's the intensity that changes it.
Were you surprised by Stan coming into powerlifting? I mean, when he went to you, he did a little bit of powerlifting already, and I'm sure he was incredibly strong, but doing 20 reps, maybe he didn't always see that upper end strength level, and he went right from you in San Jose right over to me in Sacramento, and then just completely ripped through powerlifting like nobody's ever done before, kind of the way you did in your early bodybuilding career. He just ripped right through and just started breaking all-time world records pretty much out of nowhere. Did that shock you or surprise you at all?
Who didn't it shock? I knew he was strong, but I didn't see a lot of that crazy strength because we did reps. About time he got the squat, and we had already done maybe a couple of exercises and probably over 100 reps. So he didn't have that type of burst or anything. And I didn't want him to because, I always thought at your peak strength is when you're most vulnerable of tearing something. You gotta, it's like a race car. They'll break trying to break a record because they're giving everything they have. So when he went there, and obviously I had the honor of being there, I just felt, I felt like I was around a rock star. because everybody knew who he was, and he wanted me there. But I was like, I was just in awe. Sometimes I go back and I look at those videos. I mean, that's some real superhuman type stuff. And once again, that's what makes him so different. You got a guy who's highly educated, not just school-wise, just intuitively educated, right? You got a guy who's multifaceted in businesses, 3 different revenue streams where he's making millions of dollars, okay? Then he comes and trains with me and goes through hell and wins his pro card. Then he wants to put himself through more hell and go and powerlift. And he don't just go and do it; he goes and crushes it. It's not a lot of people who have that ability, man.
I want to add,
stay humble, and he's the most approachable guy.
I want to also add that he was my age that I am right now when he did it. So I'm 43. I can't make sense of that.
No, I still tease him and tell him, to F off, because in a good way. Cause, he's still doing things that men of his age can't do, squatting that type of weight, and for such long periods of time, minimum to no injuries whatsoever. Listen, we'll go back and I'll say it like I said before. There's just some people who are born with a special gift. Don't F with them because you'll hurt yourself. What you do is sit back and you watch the show. You just watch the show. Don't be a part of the show. You just sit back and get your popcorn and you just watch the show, man, because they're meant to do things that are just unhuman, superhuman.
Are you able to exercise now?
Yeah, I still train. I just started back kind of training my leg. Actually, I just got my final version of my leg. Where is it? I don't have it on right now. Pearl, is my leg over there? Could you bring it to me, Princess? So it's still painful. It's just something I got to go through. I've been through pain all my life, so I just look at this as another battle that I got to win. So I'm able to train. I do the same workouts and everything that I did before, just a lot lighter, and I take a longer time to recover and stuff. Trying to get back into it because of the COVID thing and just coming out of my surgeries, I had a lot of atrophy, a lot of nerve damage. But yeah, training is the only true fountain of youth. It truly is. There's no pills there's no shots or injection, and I'm aware of that. And, I think because of my training, I've been able to sustain so many super surgeries and harsh times that I've been through. And I got to go back even deeper than that and say it's the man upstairs who gave me that ability. But I just got the final version of my leg today. And, of course, I had to yesterday I had to put my famous picture on there. So that's my buddy here. You guys will be seeing a lot of us walking around. So, yeah, but back to training. Want to get in shape. And, obviously, like I said before, trying to launch my nutrition company. So I have to put myself out there to get back in shape. And it's just another learning curve. I think it's a different audience that I can talk to at my age. I'll be 55 next month. So, I hate people make excuses. I can't use my leg as an excuse for I'm not in shape. I've seen so many great people who are amputees and they're just crushing it. I've had millions of amputees contact me all around the world and they're just crushing it, getting it in. How can I sit here and make an excuse? People who are older than me who are in great shape. How can I sit there and make an excuse? So I can't. It doesn't matter. Back surgery, kidney surgery. I still have my rare disease that I have to fight for. There's no cure to it. There's a lot of medication I have to take due to that and due to this, but there's still so many other people out there who have it so much harder than I am. How can I sit there and piss off and make a damn excuse? I'd rather try to help people not to make excuses instead of being on that bandwagon. That's in the words of the great President Kennedy, that's a defeatist mind frame. Can't have that. Can't accept it.
Yeah, your story is miraculous, so thank you so much for sharing it. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you, brother, man. Your podcast, and, again, I commend you on everything you've done. And to be honest, people like you and Stan, they highlight, my weaknesses, and I mean that in a good way, kind of this new internet thing has taken, a multifaceted, right? And you've got to be a part of some incredible major revenue stream. And I know when it first started coming aboard, a lot of people would be pissed because you have these, YouTubers or whatever at an event, and they have a queue wrapped around the building,
Yeah.
and other old timers like, man, what is this? You done all this, and who are these guys? And I'm like, I'm not mad at them, man. That ability is open to all of us. All they've done is poked a hole in our weakness. It's up to me to get my game up. So what you've been able to do inspires me. What Stan's been able to do inspires me. But I'm not stupid. I know to stay in my own lane. I don't want to get bent up. If I kind of pull over into a lane of a diesel, it ain't going to go too well. But I'm inspired by what you've done. I commend you on what you've done and what you're doing. Thank you so much for having me on your show, man. I appreciate it greatly. And, just you and your family, I know you and your brothers, and we know all each other personally. And got an amazing family and an amazing dad, who's helping me with my taxes right now. Thank God. Oh, goodness. But, it's just, at the end of the day, brother, it's just really nice to meet other nice people in the world, especially now what we're going through. And, it's really hard. Everything we're going through, me personally, I used to be a police officer. So, it's difficult for me, but I also have been, mistreated by police officers. I had guns drawn on me for no reason. So I've had the unique ability to see it from both sides. And, it's like being a power lifter or bodybuilder. You might love it, but it doesn't mean it loves you, which means it's not meant for you. I can love basketball all I want. I suck. So what if I continue to try to pursue this basketball career? I'm a suck. I might love it, but it doesn't love me. It's not meant for me. Bodybuilding is not meant for everybody. Anybody can work out. Anybody can better themselves. But be a world-class bodybuilder, sorry, it's not meant for everybody. You've been a great, recognized powerlifter in everything you've done. Everybody can work out, right? Everybody can't do that stand type of crap. Same thing with being a police officer. It's a career. It's not a job. It's a career. And just because you're smart and can pass the test doesn't mean you deserve to be an officer. I'm thankful that I chose and got into another sport because it was really hard. It's very difficult to walk in and deal with everybody's crap and go home and be comfortable. It's difficult, because it wears on you. I worked in a jail for a long time, and, it will turn you into a type of person. And I'm happy I was able to walk away from that. It's very difficult. And when everybody else is running from harm, they're running towards harm, the good ones. So it's a hard time that we're going through. And, I just want to say I believe in my race. I think my race is superior to everything else on this planet. I think my race is not the rule over all other races, and I'm very proud of my race. And I'm talking about the human race. There's only one race. It's a human race. And I think we were put here to rule over all others. There's no difference. My grandmother was raised in 1909, and you got to understand what she's seen being raised in 1909. And she always taught me, Kenny, there's no black and white. There's just good and bad people. And that's just the way I look at it. It's just good and bad people, period.
Where can people find you, Flex?
Building my website. It'll be done hopefully in a soon here, and it's officialFlexWheeler.com. They can find me on my Instagram, officialFlexWheeler. My YouTube, which I'm trying to figure out why people can't find it, because I keep getting a lot of comments who can't find the YouTube, but I'll send you over the link to that. But it's FlexWheeler. I don't know why people can't find, but other than that, you can DM me or just email me at FlexWheeler, KenFlexWheeler@yahoo.com.
Awesome, man. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, man. Enjoy you guys' weekend. Nice meeting you, bro. Mm-hmm. And thank you so much again for allowing me to be on your show, man. I really appreciate it. God bless.
Catch you later.
Thanks, Flex.
Right. See you.
Damn, that was amazing.
Yeah. That was dope.
Yeah, he was freaking awesome. I kind of knew it would, be like that. I mean, he's very well spoken. He's very philosophical. He thinks a lot about stuff. So it's I knew it wouldn't be like, hey, we're going to talk about doing 20 sets of 20, type of thing. Even though we did throw a little bit of that in there. It's just, I think that all of us have lifted long enough to understand that this is a lifestyle, and to really, whether you want to be super strong or you want to, be a pro bodybuilder or however far you want to take your fitness, it takes a lot of your mind to be able to push to certain specific points. And he obviously had that and then some to be able to do it.
Yeah, it's funny you're mentioning he's like an old Obi-Wan, but he legitimately like when I think of like old Obi-Wan from the movies, it's just like he's a Jedi master.
He really is. Yeah.
He really is like a Jedi master. And no, like I still am so surprised by just the level of transparency he had about himself, his flaws, his strengths, who he is, who he realizes and recognizes he is, like beneath the whole persona. Like the fact that he was just so open about that is really, because there's a lot of older individuals within that whole industry that will still put forward that type of persona. And it's just like that level of honesty it's crazy to me. It's great. But it's
also super complicated when you've been abused, sexually abused, and the different things he went through as a kid. It just clouds everything else. It makes everything else like you just, I don't understand what that means, because I've mentioned many times I've never had that in my background, so I can only like speculate or imagine. But I think it makes everything else like so unclear. You don't understand, like people that love you are hurting you. People that love you are doing things wrong to you. You don't know how to interpret that. It's hard to make sense of. You may never know. You may never understand. You may never get it. You may never, it just might be something that actually does never make sense to you. Like it might not, it may not have a logical explanation. Even saying somebody was abused themselves, my dad had this happen to him and now he's doing this to me. It's like, I don't think that really makes you feel any better, So, going through life is hard enough. And then when you have these other complications added to it, on top of, him, and maybe the self-doubt and those things were caused from the sexual abuse and other things he went through. And he had to deal with that the whole time. And he's still dealing with it, still trying to figure it out. And he's got depression, and he's got mental and physical harm and injuries. It's like, damn, man, that's a lot of stuff to unravel, but he's done a damn great job of it.
What he said about opinions was really, I think, something that a lot of us can take away, though, because, a lot of people looking at him would be like, oh, that's the greatest bodybuilder of all time or greatest physique of all time. But he plainly said that doesn't matter. The opinions don't matter. It's factually, he didn't win Olympia. But even so, like, in general, no matter if somebody thinks you're this great or if they think you suck, it's just an opinion and it's not factual. You just can't put much weight into it. And he followed it up with people's perceptions, right? So he does recognize that a lot of people do put him up at that pedestal, but I think he's not willing to. I think he's not willing to put himself up on that pedestal. It is interesting, though. It does bring up something really interesting. I mean, many that done polls like this, what do men or what do, people find attractive about one another? It's like, it's agreeable, that there's like X, Y, and Z, the person has this attribute. What makes a flower more beautiful than a tree? I mean, if you sat down and wrote about it, like if all three of us sat down and wrote about it, I mean, we would probably start to come up with some things that we could agree upon that are similar to where we could say, yeah, the flower is prettier than the tree because the tree is just like gray. It doesn't have any unique characteristics. It doesn't really look that cool. So while it is kind of an opinion, it's kind of also not just opinion, because within the guidelines of bodybuilding, he won a lot. Yeah. He had a lot of victory.
right? And in a very highly competitive, how many people want to bodybuild, and then how many people become professional bodybuilders, and then how many people are gunning for those number one spots in those competitions? It's very modest of him to say, hey, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. Well, it sort of matters. If it didn't matter at all, then we wouldn't talk about Michael Jordan, because he just wouldn't have any accomplishments. We'd be like, so what? A bunch of people think he's pretty good at basketball. Mm. But there's something agreeable there. There's some traits where we're like, no, he's actually different than everybody. I think, and, something like this could be viewed as controversial. The idea that we're all like equal or created equal, I think, is somewhat of a fallacy, especially when it comes to physically. When it comes to physically, there's just like no question that's just not. I don't think that would be in debate. The way our minds work and the way our brains work, yeah, and we all have the same rights, like that. That's not what I'm talking about. But from a physical standpoint, Shaq is way different than me, and I would imagine that he'd kick my ass. Yeah, you know what I mean. No matter what,
kick all our asses.
Yeah, I'd imagine he'd kick my ass no matter what I'd try to do. But yeah, it's great talking to somebody like that, and then having our friend in common, Stan Efforting, and him telling those stories of Stan getting mad is amazing, because I can't picture Stan getting mad at anybody.
It's a very scary image. Very red.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Stan is like a different level strong too. Like Stan's not the guy where you're like, oh, he's just strong in the gym. Mm-hmm. Like that's not that guy. He wouldn't be that way. You would be like, oh my God, like, I think he'd be like unbelievably strong. I think he'd be stronger than you would anticipate, not weaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You'd be like, whoops, made the wrong guy mad.
Yeah. I love what Flex was when, about sharing secrets and stuff, when he was saying like he was like an open book, and then, but just when he said that, because, in today's world, everybody wants to get like ahead of everybody. Nobody's really too open to share certain things. For him to say like, no, I didn't want to beat somebody by holding information back. I wanted to beat everybody at their best. He's like, I'd rather have that than the opposite. That was really, this whole conversation was huge, but that was just one of the many things that he said where I'm like, damn, dude.
He was dropping some bombs on us, man.
People don't speak that way.
Yeah.
It's like just incredible. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he said everything's a business when money's involved. Doesn't matter what it is. It's like, whoa. Like he was just, he was on fire. I think he's just like that all the time, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
Man, that was great.
The glitz and glory versus grit and gory. I wrote that down. I was like,
I wrote it down too.
What the hell? This is a super smart dude. Mm-hmm. I like what he said about happiness, being a choice. It's something I talk about quite a bit. And look, if that guy can say it,
mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, I know that, again, I understand that people say, hey, easy for you to say because things are, going good for you or whatever. And I mentioned this before as well. Like when I found it interesting too, that he said he was a big dreamer, which that's interesting. When you don't have a lot of confidence, how do you dream about, you're dreaming about stuff that doesn't sound logically like in your future, but good for him for doing that, because otherwise he wouldn't be who he is.
It's a bit of an escape.
Yeah, probably. I feel like I've always been that way. Mm-hmm. But I was going to say is that before I ever did anything, somebody would say, oh, you're just, you're unrealistic, that you're just a dreamer. And they would just kind of, throw out whatever I would say, whatever I wanted to do. They wouldn't give it any validation, right? Now they say, oh, it's easy for you to say you're rich. And it's like, you can't have it both ways. You can't, I was dreaming of these things, before I ever did anything. And now I have some other things I'd like to do, and it's like, man, people just want to throw out an excuse so that they don't have to, I think maybe place that same thing on themselves, because it might be too much of a burden. It might be too hard of a thing to carry,
Mm-hmm. That is what it comes down to, though. There's always going to be some reason why you're ahead. Like, for example, Will Smith's kids. They're actually really, really good artists, like Jaden and Will. Their music's really good, but when I've talked to people about it, they're like, well, look, they're Will Smith's kids. They have all this money. They have all this time to get into that. Of course they're good. It's like there's always going to be some excuse why somebody's better at you than something.
Mm-hmm. What's the son's name? You just said it. Jaden. He was pretty good on. Damn it! There's a Netflix show, and I had kind of the same thought of like people were probably like, oh, he's just there because his dad put him there or whatever. But like he did really good on the show, and I can't remember what the hell it's called.
Even Karate Kid, he was dope.
I don't remember watching that one, but yeah. Anyway, sorry. It was a Netflix show that I was really into, and I can't remember what it was called. The Get Down.
Was he in that? I mean, I know what the show you're talking about is.
Yeah.
You sure it was him?
I could be wrong. Maybe I am wrong, but I thought he was the one that turned out being gay.
There's some DJ stuff in it?
Yeah.
You're right. He wasn't it.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
He ended up being the gay one.
Yeah. He was good.
He was really good.
Yeah.
I completely turned around on like that whole thought of being like, he's just Will's kid. But no, he was fucking badass.
That is a weird habit that we have, huh? Like even if you don't say it, there's some part of your mind that thinks something like that and you'll catch yourself. Isn't that kind of weird? I think that's odd.
Yeah, we are all guilty of it. Like even with Stan, like Stan's success, like if you don't know him, you're just like, well, he's probably like wealthy because his parents were wealthy. It's just easy to like just pass it off and just say, it's you because like you want for some reason you want to have an excuse. You need to have like a defense mechanism, I guess it's just a way to calm yourself down about maybe not having some certain things that you want to have or feel that you should have. I did find a lot of his language very interesting. I find the way people communicate very interesting. Like he said a lot of things that I don't agree with. But like when he was kind of saying like how what other people are doing is like poking holes in what he's doing, and I know he's kind of like halfway joking, but he's talking about like Stan still hitting up these lifts and these things and what I've done with marketing or something like that. And it's just like, I think it's unhealthy. I just don't think it's, I think it adds to his depression because there's no reason for him to think that. I mean, you can't be more, I can't think of somebody that's more accomplished than a Flex Wheeler. I mean, he's, out of all the people we've had on the show, I mean, he's right up there, and out of all the episodes that we've done, I would have to like review everybody that we had, but I mean, shit, he would be top 5 probably in terms of difficulty of what he did and for how long he did it for. So I'm not poking holes in anything that guy's doing. He's kicking ass.
Yeah, and I think, and I don't, because he said he was a realist.
Highlighting his weaknesses is what he was saying. That's what I meant to say.
Him saying that he was a realist and saying like it doesn't matter what I believed. There was times where I believed I should have won and I didn't. So what good did it do? Right. I'm just like, man, like I don't know. Like that's when he hadn't even admitted it or said it at that point. But I'm like, man, he sounded like he was very depressed, like his whole career. And it's like, shit, dude. Like he's working really hard in the gym and he's also working inside. Like I can't even imagine like the willpower behind this guy because, dude, to be dealing with both those things like that on the highest level and still like say I hate myself. It's like, oh my gosh, like fuck. Like,
yeah, it's brutal, and I think that's what made him amazing. I think that's a thing that kind of, or at least that's what he turned it into, because he turned himself into kind of another person.
Yeah,
and I mean, if we look at it like we have all these individuals that are all like on self-development and strengthening the mind on this podcast, but you can see that you still put in the work, you'll still do some amazing things. So he told us all the things that he was going through at that point that made it so difficult for him up here, but he was still outworking everybody. His first Olympia, he placed second, which I don't like. What the fuck? You don't hear people placing second at their very first Olympia
ever.
He won 5 Arnold Classics in a row, which was never done up until that point. And that's like the second show up to the Olympia. So it's just like he may have been going through all these things, but it didn't take away from the fact that he was the hardest worker in the room, or one of the absolute hardest workers in the room, which allowed him to reach those levels. So that's a big consistent theme right there.
A badass.
Yeah,
that was incredible.
Damn, I'm stunned.
Yeah,
freaking awesome stuff. take us on out of here, Andrew.
Alrighty, y'all. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode. Thank you again, FlexWheeler. That was incredible. I laughed. I legit cried back here, and I became inspired. So thank you for that. If you're not following the podcast on Instagram, please do so at Mark Bell's Power Project, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. Nsima, where are you at?
At Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, at Nsima Yinyang on TikTok and Twitter. Mark?
Thanks again, Mr. FlexWheeler, for coming on the show today. That was actually just amazing and some really great insight. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch y'all later.
So that's it for today's podcast. Thank you, everybody, again, for checking this one out. I hope you guys are inspired just like we are. Thank you, everybody that's been rating and reviewing the podcast. Right now, we wanted to give a huge shout out and thank you to But I'm Not a Rapper. And he spelled rapper like candy rapper. So not like a MC rapper. Anyways, I'm Not a Rapper says, love the crew. Quote, Mark, Nsima, and Andrew are so fun to listen to. Whether I'm working out, driving, or cooking at home, they always drop gems that make each day better. They're like a group of friends that you're there hanging out with. Thanks for all that you do, guys. Thank you so much. Man, just seriously, thank you. If you listening right now, if you guys want to hear your name read on air, please head over to iTunes, drop us a rating, write in a review, and you could hear your name on air just like our friend, But I'm Not a Rapper. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.